Controlling dynamics and learning how compressors work are two of the most important things when it comes to learning how to mix and master music. In this video, I'm going to share with you another way to use a compressor that not many people think about or that just aren't aware of. And this technique is called upward compression, and it's a little bit different from what most people think of when they think of compression. I hope this video changes the way you think about compression when you're using it to mix and master your music. Hey, what's going on? My name is Bobby Balo, and I'm the mixing and mastering engineer at Rayton Productions. As a thank you for your time and attention today, I have a free gift for you. In the description, you can find a link to download my Compression 101 ebook. And this is a guide that's going to walk you through how to set up a compressor for many different audio sources like vocals, guitars, or drums. So if you're struggling with compressors or you just want to go a little bit deeper into how they work or some good settings, that book is amazing. And again, if you go to the description of this video, you can download your free copy. So it's important to understand what compression is. Compression is anytime you reduce the dynamic range of your audio source. So what is dynamic range? Basically, dynamic range is the difference in volume between the loudest and the quietest parts of your audio signal. So any way that you're able to shrink basically the peaks from the quietest parts of the audio is called compression. Now, when most people think of compression, they think of downward compression, which means that you set the threshold to basically lower the volume of anything that goes above a defined level. So in essence, you're just lowering the peaks of all of your audio signals and decreasing that level. To do that, you simply set your threshold setting here on whatever compressor you want, and we're gonna go until we're just shaving off the tops of these waveforms, okay? You can see that by this gain reduction meter, we're decreasing the volume of everything that goes above minus 20 decibels, okay? So that's all these top little peaks here, okay? And because we're decreasing the loudest parts of the audio and we're shortening our dynamic range, we are doing downward compression, okay? But if you think about it logically, there's another way to do compression. So instead of trying to smash the loudest parts down, you can actually turn up the quietest parts and then leave the loudest parts alone. Okay, this is called upward compression. And it's called compression because we're actually decreasing our dynamic range. Okay, so instead of squishing the dynamic range down from the top, we're raising it up from the bottom, so the overall difference from the loudest and quietest parts is reduced. Okay, again, compression. If you achieve compression by reducing the loudest parts of your audio signal, that's called downward compression. So with downward compression, your threshold sets the level at which you're going to push down the loudest parts. In upwards compression mode, what the threshold does is set the level at which you do not do any increase to the lowest parts. It's like the opposite of a gate or an expander. So anytime you have a signal that goes above your threshold for upward compression, you do not add any volume. Every time the signal drops below it, we increase the level. And the lower it goes, the more we increase the level. So even though these two things have the same overall effect of compression, they have very different sounds. And in certain use cases, they sound much better. So let's go into a session and show you what these two different strategies sound like so you can figure out if you should be doing downward compression or upward compression. One compressor that allows us to do both downward and upward compression is this one by Waves. This is the C1 compressor. I have a link to go check this out in the description if you're interested in learning more. So let's set this up to do downward compression. And I'm having it be very aggressive. It's like 25-to-1, immediate attack, so as low as it can go. And then we have a release at about 360 milliseconds. And the reason I'm being so aggressive with this is so that you can hear the sound of the compressor on this audio source. If we just do a few decibels of gain reduction, we're not really going to be able to easily hear what the sound is, okay? So let's bypass this and listen to a loop that I have. Okay, I want you to really focus on the transient, so like the snappiness of each of these notes, and then also what it sounds like in between the notes. Okay, let's turn on this compressor and do some downward compression. So what this is doing again is it's going to lower the volume of anything that goes above a threshold that we set. So it's going to lower the snappiness of those transients. Let's hear it. Okay, it kind of sounds a little bit more lifeless, right? It's a little bit more pinned flat. And you get a little bit more pumpy motion right after that initial snap of the individual notes. Let's put this in upward compression mode and see what this sounds like. If you listen closely, you'll notice that it doesn't sound as flat and pinned as the last example sounded. And you get a nice swelling in of volume in between the notes. So you get movement with upward compression in between the transients. Okay, this is really cool when you're trying to add a nice movement or groove to a song without it feeling squashed. So let me bypass it. Okay, upward. And downwards. Upwards. Yes. So hopefully those differences are obvious to you. I find that downward compression tends to sound good if you are using it on a complex source like a mix bus or group tracks. And I find that upwards compression sounds the best if you're trying to add a cool movement or feeling to an individual track like this melody that we have here. Let's try it out on a drum loop. Okay, we'll start with it bypassed so you can hear what it sounds like, and then we're gonna hear it in downward compression mode and then upward compression mode. And again, really listen to the transient, that initial snap of each of the drum hits, and then listen to what it sounds like in between the notes. And I think it'll be very obvious what the differences are with these two styles of compression. Cool. So I hope that highlights the difference in sound of upwards versus downwards compression. So when would you use something like upwards compression? So in my experience, I tend to use upwards compression when I'm trying to do one of three things. The first is if I'm trying to bring out very quiet, intimate parts of something like a vocal. If I want the breath to be enhanced or any of the quietest moments, upwards compression sounds absolutely fantastic for that. Another reason why I would use upward compression is if I want to increase the sustain on certain notes. So a lot of times I find myself using upward compression on a bass guitar because you'll lose a lot of the strong sub-bass information as you get to longer and longer notes. So a bass player might hit a string and then it naturally decays over time. Well, if you use upward compression, it'll keep raising the volume as that decay is occurring so you get a consistent bass performance. I find that that works so well in that case. And the other time that I tend to use upward compression is when I want to bring out the ambience of a track. So this usually is the case in a drum room mic. I love the sound of big, roomy sounds, but I don't necessarily want to change the transient information. I'll reach for upward compression to raise the level of the room sound so it sounds a little bit larger than life. Now, some downsides of upward compression is that while you're increasing the level of the quietest parts, that will also mean that you're going to increase the level of the noise floor. Okay, so if you have a really noisy recording, it might make the hum or buzz more obvious or more noticeable. So in those cases, I probably wouldn't use upward compression. But one workaround, and this takes this upward compression concept to a completely another level, is to use a multiband compressor to do the upward compression. And using a multiband compressor to do this is great because it allows you to keep the frequencies as clean and focused as possible. So what are your thoughts on this whole thing? Do you use upward compression at all? Do you use other compressors? And do you have a favorite compressor to do this? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I want to remind you that I have that free downloadable gift for you sitting in the description. So if you want to pick up my Compression 101 ebook and learn how to dial in compressor settings for a lot of different audio sources, that is a great, great resource. So go and download your copy. Again, totally free. If you got something out of this video and you feel like supporting me, you can just hit that thumbs up button and then also share this video with some of your friends or to social media groups on Facebook or Reddit. And that just helps to get the word out. I would really, really appreciate that. And with that, I want to thank you, as always, for your time and attention today. My name is Bobby Balo, and I hope to see you in another video.